In this video, we're going to be looking at a concept called authenticated pages, or we can also name it protected routes in Vue.js. So what actually is a protected route? What does a authenticated page actually mean? So I'm going to start with providing you a basic example of what it actually means. Let me go to google.com and search a keyword called login. It's going to give me a lot of websites which require login before you can view some data. Okay, I'm going to select a random one from this list. So let's select this one. Okay, so this website is here. This website needs two things right now, mainly user ID, which will be some ID that has been provided to that user who's logging in right now, and a password, which is also set by the user himself. And there is some code which you enter here so that um, it confirms that you're not a bot or a robot or something. It's just typical stuff, and you submit. And what happens after that? This thing takes you to a next step, which is your profile. Your profile, imagine facebook.com. Okay, on Facebook, you go to the Facebook's homepage, you enter your username, then you enter your password, and then you say sign in. As soon as you're signed in, you're taken to the next step. You are able to view your personal information, your private data, your messages, your feed, and your pictures. You can delete them, you can add new pictures, you can update statuses, you can comment on people's pictures, you can do a lot of stuff. But there you're acting as a user and the owner of your data. Okay, which means your page was authenticated. You were only able to view that page when you entered your username, your password. The server checked that if you entered the correct stuff. When the server checked your data with the data it has inside the database, only then you were able to edit and do stuff to your data. You won't be able to edit my data without my username and password. So that means my data is secured, my data is authenticated. You have to cross a step to reach that point. Okay, which means authenticated pages, authenticated routes. So this is a route, right? This is a route. So when I click submit, it's going to take me to another route, which is going to be my profile. So that means profile is authenticated. I won't be able to go to profile without entering my username and password. So this is the core logic, the very basic foundational block of understanding authenticated routes or protected pages. So next up, I'm going to go to codesandbox.io. I'm going to start with the basic bare-bones structure code for Vue.js, and I'm going to show you guys how you can create the same thing in Vue.js and achieve the authenticated stuff in your web application. I'm not going to focus on designing stuff. I'm not going to focus on styling. I'm not going to focus on beautifying it. I'm going to focus on basic core logic. Then you guys can do anything to it. Like you guys can include CSS frameworks, SAS, CSS, beautify it, do anything you want. But right now we're going to be keeping the video short, simple. We're going to be focusing on the logic, and let's get started. We're going to be looking at the same concept, but we're going to build it from scratch. We're not going to focus on design. We're not going to focus on beautifying stuff. We're going to just be focusing on the foundational logic behind creating authenticated pages. And then you guys can use anything you want to beautify stuff, to create nice login pages and have that authentication flow like GitHub in your web application. Okay. So right now I've got a really simple structure. I've got a component which is header, which has nothing in it. I'm going to type in header here so that you guys can see the headers included in the main app.view file. App.view file has a div which has app header inside it and the router view. I'm assuming you guys know the basic Vue.js and the basic Vue router. That's it. Nothing advanced. Okay, so let's start with header. I'm gonna scrape this off and I'm gonna include a router link here. Let's name it login, and it's gonna take you to the login page. Let's copy the same thing and paste it one more time, and this time it's going to be home. In our case, let's say profile. In our case, profile is going to be authenticated and login is going to be a public page. A public page is basically a page which can be viewed by everybody, but a profile is a user specific page which can be developed or designed once, but the data that's been fed to it can change. Okay, so how does that work? I'm going to give you a simple brief explanation about it. You enter the username, you enter the password, you send that username and password to the server. The server cross checks the sent data with the database, and when everything is good, it sends back a response which says, yeah, everything is good, take this user to the next page, which is going to be the user specific data. So we don't create a profile page for every user. We create the profile page only once. Imagine it as a template which is holding a data for a specific user. You pass in the username, you pass in the password, server checks it, sends back a response and says, yeah, this user is good to go. Inject this data into the profile template. Okay. And then profile is injected with your data, and then you can see your data there. Okay. So we created two links. The first one is login, the second one is profile. Let me change the path to it. Let's say profile. Okay, so now we have two links, which is login and profile. If I click login, you can see it changing here, and if I click profile, you can see that changing here, right? So let's style it a little. Let's give it a class name of link. Let's copy the same thing and paste it here. Class link. Let's define that class here, and let's give it a margin of 10 pixels, and let's bold it so that it's clearly visible. Okay, so now we have got login, we have got profile. Imagine this as a header. I know this is not looking good, but we're going to focus on the foundational and basic building block for creating authenticated pages in Vue.js. Okay, so this is the header. I think the header is done. We don't have to do anything here anymore. Let's proceed to app.view. This is also good. We have imported app header here. We have included the app header into components. It is really simple. Anybody who has basic knowledge of Vue.js can understand what's happening here, can understand what's happening here also. And now let's proceed to the components folder and create two things. Ideally, we had to create a page here, a login page and a profile page, but I'm not going to complicate things. I'm just going to show you a basic thing. So that's why I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm going to create a component here, which is going to be profile.view, and another file login.view. Okay, so we have two things, profile.view, login.view. I'm going to close app.view. I'm going to close header.view. Login view is here, profile view is here. Okay, let's drag it here. So in profile view, I'm going to inject some basic Vue boilerplate code, and I'm going to return a div which will say profile page. Copy the same code, paste in login.view, and change the name from profile to login. So now we have two pages, profile.view, login.view. Now, ideally, what's going to happen here is if I click login page should be viewed underneath the header. That's what happens on every website, right? If I click sign in here, it takes me to a sign in page. That's what's going to happen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my router.js file. Anybody who has a basic knowledge of Vue router can understand what's happening right now. Okay, we are defining Vue, we import router, we tell Vue to use the router, and we define some settings for the router. Okay, so for routes, what we're going to do is we're going to pass first object, which is going to be a page. The name will be profile component. Let's import the component here. Import profile from dot components and profile.view. Okay, and then inject the profile here. Okay, path is required. Path is / profile. Okay, so this is our first object which we included in the routes array. It's going to be our first route, which is profile. Path is profile. Component is profile. And the second thing is login. Let's copy the same thing, paste it once again, make it login, and this is going to be a login route. This will be the login component. It's going to throw me an error because I haven't included the login yet. Let's include it. Login from dot components / login.view. Okay, yeah, so we're done. See, we already see the results here. This is profile page, this is the login page. The header remains the same, only the content underneath it changes. Okay, so the problem here is that I'm not logged in right now technically, but I'm able to see the profile page, which is wrong, which shouldn't be the case. Okay, I'm gonna save it and then go to my login page, index page, profile page, header. Let's go to the login page. Let's edit it a little. Let's include input. Type is going to be text. Um, email. Sorry, email. It's gonna have. Let me give it an ID. Email. There is gonna be a label for email. It's gonna have email. Let me style it a little. Scoped. Let's give it a class name of form. Let's say form padding 10 pixels. This is the email. Let's copy the same thing over again and paste it here. We'll say password. This is gonna be password. Type is password. This is password. So this will be our password input and this will be the email. Okay. So this is our form. This is our login page. I know it's not looking good, but as I told you already, we're not focusing on beautifying or design stuff. So this is our two things. Let's create a data feed here. Let's bind it. This is email. Copy the same thing, paste it. Password. Email. Password. Now let's see it live. Let's do email here and see if it's working. Password. I'm gonna type here. It's gonna show. And I'm gonna type password. It's gonna show. So that means it's binded already. So I think this part is done. Now let's have a button here. The button will say login, and on click we'll say login. We'll create a method for logging in. Method login. We'll say this dot dollar router dot push path is forward slash profile. We'll also check if the values were entered. So we'll say if this dot email and this dot password, only then go to this dot router. Else, otherwise don't go. Or we can also have the button disabled if the username or password is not entered. So we'll say disabled, if not email and not password. So when you don't have both the fields entered, it's gonna stay disabled. Okay. So so all of this stuff is done. I'm gonna say email and I'm gonna log in. It's not gonna proceed to the profile page, but when I enter the password, it's gonna go to the profile page. Okay. But the thing here is that I'm still able to go to profile page and the profile page is not secured here. So what's the problem here? How can we secure the profile page from users before uh, they enter the username and password? So let's go to the router file and let's tell the profile page that it's gonna have some meta, and in the metadata we can pass in is auth and we're gonna say true. So that means this page is an authenticated page and it's gonna need username and password first, and then only then you can view it. Or we can change the key name, we can say needs auth. It needs authentication to be viewed. So let's copy this code from here and assign it to a new variable called router and export that variable underneath it, export default router. So after we have exported the router, we've opened a new set of things here, which I'm going to show you next. We're going to say router dot. It's going to give me a list of all the available methods that are inbuilt in Vue routers. Okay. So right now we're focusing on authenticated pages. We're focusing on setting some guards or a security on specific page before entering that page or before navigating to that page, before going to that page. So in Vue router, we have got a method which is called before each. Okay, so what is before each? I'm going to show you what before each means. So before each. So when you click on any link, the router dot before each method will be triggered. Okay, so let's say it takes three arguments: to, from. To means where you are going, which link you clicked. So here I clicked profile, so that means I'm going to profile. From, login. So to means where you're going to, and from means from where you are coming or where you are currently, on which page you are, and from that page you're going to somewhere else. Okay, so it's to, from, next. Next is, I'll show you what next is. You're going to see practically what next means. Okay, so right now you can see nothing is visible. If I'm going to comment this out, everything will be visible underneath here, right? So now before going to any route, be it the first one, be it the authenticated one, be it anyone, you're going to see if this page needs authentication. So in our case, profile needs authentication because in the metadata we have declared needs auth as true. So which means this page needs auth before navigating to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if to, which means you are going to that page. If to dot meta dot needs auth, which means true. Yeah, it needs auth. So all the pages which have needs auth in the metadata of that page will follow this condition. Next. Next means where should you go? Should you allow them to go to that page or you shouldn't? So we'll say next / login. Don't allow them to go to that page. Else, we'll say next. Next without any argument means okay, allow them. So right now our login page doesn't need any auth because it's publicly visible to everybody, because everybody's going to come up to the login page and enter the username and password and then proceed to the profile or whatever the page is. Here login page is not secured, so it doesn't need any auth. That's why it's visible. But now if I'm going to click on profile, it's not going to navigate. It's not going to navigate to profile. If I'm going to make this false and save it and then click profile, I'm going to see the profile page. You see the difference here? Login and profile doesn't need any auth. You're able to view it. If I'm going to make this true, you don't have to do any if condition in the profile page is mounted lifecycle look. You don't have to do that loose logic or insecure stuff. You just have it in your router guards. I've seen people checking if the user is logged in mounted hook, which is really bad. So if it needs auth, you go to login and tell them to log in first. And if it doesn't, you let them go to the next page. Okay. So now the question arises, how to check if the person is logged in or not. So there are a lot of ways to check that if the person is logged in or not. I think this video is getting too long for that. I'm going to create a separate video, and in that video I'm going to show you how you can store the information of a user inside a browser and how you can check if the user is logged in or not, and then you can add some logic here to check if the user is logged in or not. For demonstration purposes, I can show you a simple way. I can create a variable here. I can say const is user logged in. I'm gonna say false initially. And then here I'm gonna do another if condition. If is user logged in, then do next. That means let them proceed to the next page, which is profile. Else take them to login page again because the user isn't logged in. So right now what's gonna happen? The user, sorry, the user is not logged in, right? If I'm gonna say profile, it's not gonna go to profile, right? But what if the user is logged in, which means it's true? It's gonna go to profile, right? So this is how the authentication flow works. Now, if the user is logged in, you can have some logic here. You can run a function inside here and then you can say, yeah, the user is logged in. You can set it to true and then you can proceed with the login. Or when you click login, you can do a lot of stuff, which I'm going to show in the next video to make it super simple and super clear for you guys to implement the same functionality in your web apps. Thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. Also share it with your friends who are into same field, who are trying to learn Vue or do stuff around Vue ecosystem. Share my channel with the ones you know. Thanks a lot. I'll be recording the next session soon and I'll be posting the video. Bye.